All right, let's dive straight into this explainer and uncover exactly why intermittent fasting affects female biology so drastically differently than male biology. Stepping into my role as a clinical nutritionist today, I really want to tackle this trend because, well, it is absolutely everywhere right now. We've all heard those incredible success stories, right? Especially from guys who seem to just skip a few meals, suddenly drop weight, and look fantastic. But for a massive number of women out there, the experience is the exact opposite. Instead of effortless health, we're seeing lost menstrual periods, wild mood swings, plummeting energy, and even early onset menopause. So today, we're going to break down the exact biological mechanisms behind this whole phenomenon, and I'll show you how to navigate fasting safely. So here is our roadmap for today. We're going to start with 1, the fasting gender gap. Then we'll move into 2, inside the HPG axis. We'll look at 3, evolution and energy balance. After that, I'll walk you through 4, a modified fasting approach. And finally, we'll wrap up with 5, warning signs to stop. Let's jump right into section 1, the fasting gender gap. Why results vary wildly by sex. When we talk about how male and female bodies handle a negative energy balance, we're not just guessing here. We actually have clinical data showing a really stark contrast. Take a look at this fascinating 2005 study from obesity research. It just perfectly hits the nail on the head. They put non-obese men and women on the exact same alternate day fasting protocol for 3 weeks. And the results? Completely split. While the men saw their insulin sensitivity improve, meaning their metabolism got way more efficient, the women's glucose tolerance actually got worse over that exact same time frame. Their bodies weren't optimizing. They were literally panicking. It's a massive red flag telling us, hey, we absolutely cannot just apply a one-size-fits-all approach to fasting. Moving right along to section 2. Inside the HPG axis, the hormonal control center. Okay, to understand why this crazy gap exists, we have to look at the HPG axis. Think of this as your body's ultimate gatekeeper for overall harmony. This intricate biological communication network connects your brain, specifically the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, directly down to your gonads, or ovaries. It is exquisitely sensitive to exactly how much fuel you're putting into the tank. And, this isn't just about fertility. This axis regulates the whole shebang, your metabolism, your digestion, your mood, and even bone formation. Let's break down how this biological cascade actually worked in real time. First, your hypothalamus releases a hormone called GnRH in incredibly precise little spurts or pulses. It's almost like a biological metronome. That pulse tells your pituitary gland to release luteinizing and follicle-stimulating hormones, which then command your ovaries to produce estrogen and progesterone. And listen, estrogen is a master metabolic regulator. It controls appetite, fat storage, cognitive function, you name it. If fasting or stress disrupts those initial GnRH pulses up in your brain, the entire sequence is thrown into absolute mayhem. You don't just lose your period, your whole metabolism gets completely derailed. So, what causes that disruption? Well, it all comes down to a crucial protein called Kisspeptin. When women fast, Kisspeptin drops significantly, and that directly derails that beautiful hormonal sequence we just looked at. Kisspeptin is super sensitive to hormones like leptin and insulin, which react to hunger. But here is the real kicker. Females naturally produce significantly more Kisspeptin than males do. That means a woman's body is hypersensitive to any drop in energy. When you restrict food through intermittent fasting, your Kisspeptin production dips drastically, and that immediately slams the brakes on those GnRH pulses we just talked about. Which brings us to section 3, evolution and energy balance, survival of the fed. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth is the female body so fiercely protective of its energy stores? Why does dropping our calories or even just shrinking our eating window put our biology on such high alert? Well, it's a great question. To answer it, we have to look back at how humans reproduce compared to the rest of the mammalian world. For our ancestors, losing body fat or going a prolonged period without food signaled one major thing: a famine. And from an evolutionary standpoint, a famine is literally the absolute worst possible time to create and raise a new life. And here's where human biology is incredibly unique. Unlike nearly all other mammals, which have this clever feature called embryonic diapause to literally hit pause on a pregnancy during a famine, human females just can't do that. Once a human pregnancy begins, the fetus completely takes over. It can actually block the mother's insulin to hoard glucose and even alter her blood pressure to steal nutrients. Biologists call this maternal-fetal conflict.
Because we can't just hit pause on a pregnancy during a famine, the female body views the negative energy balance from fasting as a massive, potentially fatal threat. So it simply shuts down the reproductive axis entirely to protect itself.
Actually, scratch that. There is one fascinating exception to this rule. I want to share this surprising fact from a 2018 study. For women with PMOS, or polycystic ovary syndrome, fasting can actually be highly beneficial. Women with PMOS naturally have elevated Kisspeptin levels, so fasting brings those abnormally high levels back down into a normal range. In these specific clinical cases, that Kisspeptin-lowering effect acts as a targeted therapy. It helps regulate the reproductive cycle, decreases elevated testosterone, and improves insulin sensitivity. It just goes to show how incredibly personalized nutrition it truly needs to be. All right, let's look at Section 4, a modified fasting approach. How to test the waters safely. So, for those without PMOS who still want to experiment with the potential benefits of fasting, like longevity or weight management, my primary goal as your clinical nutritionist is to keep you safe and avoid metabolic chaos. But first, a really vital safety warning for anyone currently taking GLP-1 medications, like semaglutide. Combining these incredibly powerful drugs with fasting can dangerously suppress your appetite and completely silence your body's natural warning signs of underfueling. Research shows GLP-1 meds naturally reduce your caloric intake by up to 39%. If you're already eating that much less, and then you intentionally restrict your eating window on top of it, your body doesn't just think there's a famine, it thinks you are starving to death. You will crash your HPG Axis, and because the medication silences your hunger, you won't even feel the warning signs. Instead of diving right into the deep end, I highly recommend the IF Light approach. It's all about stretching your overnight fasting window gradually so your biological systems don't panic. Start in week 1 simply by keeping a food journal. Don't change a single thing, just observe your baseline. Then, in week 2, try a really gentle 11-hour fast, say finishing dinner at 8 p.m. and having breakfast at 7 a.m. If your energy, sleep, and mood stay totally fine, you can gently stretch it in week 3 to a 14-hour window, maybe 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. This gradual slope allows your Kisspeptin levels and your HPG axis to adapt without triggering that crazy evolutionary famine response we just talked about. Finally, Section 5, Warning Signs to Stop, Listening to Your Body's Feedback. Listen up. Because if you try this gradual approach, you absolutely must remain vigilant about monitoring your physical and emotional feedback. Fasting is a stressor, and if your stress bucket is already full from a demanding job, poor sleep, or intense workouts, well, adding fasting might just make that bucket overflow. You need to stop fasting immediately if you experience things like missed or irregular periods, poor sleep, sudden hair loss, huge mood swings, cold flashes, slow digestion, or frequent illness. These are definitive red flags. If you are suddenly shedding hair or waking up freezing at 3 a.m., that is not your body detoxing or just adjusting. That is your estrogen plummeting and your body pulling the emergency brake on your metabolism. Please don't try to push through this. Listen to your body and give it the fuel it's begging for. I'm going to leave you with this provocative question to really reflect on as we wrap up. As you tune into your own body, ask yourself, is your fasting routine fueling your body or is it fighting it? Are your nutrition choices giving you vibrant energy, regulating your mood, and supporting your hormonal health? Or are you constantly fighting your biology just to force a protocol that simply wasn't designed for your specific physiology? Remember, the absolute best diet out there is the one that supports your overall health and well-being, not the one that puts your body on high alert.